Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to six-part webinar series in the celebration of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. My name is Sumit Kundu, and I'll be your host for these webinar series. During the month of October, we celebrate Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So every Monday and Wednesday, 12 p.m. Atlantic time, we have speakers lined up from both academic and the industry background. They will talk about some of the very interesting topic like, threat intelligence, cybersecurity awareness and outreach, Bill C26, and much beyond those topics. So if you're somebody who's a seasoned professional or a student who's trying to keep up with the latest, trends and technologies within the cybersecurity space, we have something in store for everybody. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our topic for today and our speaker as well. So our topic for today is cybersecurity awareness and outreach at the Canadian Institute of Cybersecurity and beyond. And our speaker for today is Griffin Higgins. Griffin is a PhD student in computer science at the University of New Brunswick and cybersecurity software developer at the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity, aka CIC. Originally from Fredericton, Griffin completed his Bachelor's of Computer Science, Bachelor's of Art in Sociology, Masters of Applied Cybersecurity, plus Research Incentive Cyber Knowledge Studies from UNB in 2020, in 2021, and 2022, respectively. During his undergraduate study, he distinguished himself as a Dean Scholar and received the Douglas R. Pullman Prize in Sociology. Griffin also presented his graduate cybersecurity capstone project towards a cyber threat intelligence informed risk taxonomy, rethinking meter attack data visualization in collaboration with the TD Bank as a keynote at the 19th International Conference on the Privacy, Security and Trust Cybersecurity Industry Summit 2022. Cybersecurity outreach is also very important to Griffin, who enjoys mentoring and, let's be honest, learning from the cyber titan competitors, as well as speaking with K-12 New Brunswick students interested in pursuing the cybersecurity studies. So without further ado, I will hand over the stage to you. Over to you, Griffin.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Sumit. I really appreciate it. So yeah, welcome to my talk. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about cybersecurity outreach and awareness at CIC and beyond. So let's just jump right into it. For the agenda today, I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction about myself. And since it's our first talk, I'm also going to give a little bit of background on CIC and some of the work we do. Because it's also our first talk, I'm going to try and introduce what cybersecurity is, not just for experts, but just for almost anybody that I might just pull off the street and try and explain what this is, other than just, it's like hacking and stuff. After that, we're going to jump into a little bit of awareness. I'm going to give you kind of my top tips of things that you can do to be a little bit more cyber secure. And then after that, we're going to touch on some of the outreach activities that CIC does. And we're going to close off at the very end with just a couple programs in Pathways at UNB that students and people can pursue if they're interested in cybersecurity. So just as a little bit of an intro for myself, Sumit also gave me this very nice warm introduction. But yes, I am a PhD student in computer science at the University of New Brunswick. And I'm also a cybersecurity software developer here at the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity. And I've been here for about 2 years now. I also have a background, unsurprisingly, in computer science and cybersecurity, but maybe surprisingly for some, I also have roots in sociology, and that's still very important. Even though I do a lot of technical work, it shapes how I think about the world and even the work I currently do. So that's a little bit about myself, but what does cybersecurity actually mean for me? Because a lot of people will kind of have this very technical definition that you'll see if you ever crack open a textbook, but what actually is important about it to me? Well, essentially, I almost look at this kind of from a medical perspective, and I want to essentially just help people protect the things that are important to them, right? In our societies, we often think about things that are important to us. We might think about our family or our dogs or, our car or some things that we really like. But often, in our societies as they continue to increase in complexity, especially in the digital space, we recognize that things like our social insurance numbers and our bank account numbers and all of these things are very important to protect, and they could have very non-trivial consequences if they were ever impacted, right? But just almost like a medical professional, I think part of my goal in cybersecurity is to help people get some level of perspective and understanding about these things so that people can make informed choices about them, right? And I think that's not always a super technical thing. Sometimes it's just breaking it down for people in simpler terms so that they can make those decisions. And on kind of a less philosophical note, also something kind of fun about myself is I'm a huge nerd. If you ever come to my desk, you'll see I have this crazy wild light up keyboard. And it absolutely is my professional opinion that the colors on the keyboard, all the rainbows and stuff, they do make your computer go faster. That's backed up by tons of rigorous research. So if you're trying to get your parents to buy you a fancy keyboard, you can cite me if you wish. But all jokes aside, that's a little bit on me. But what's a little bit on we? So we at the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity, we come from all over the world to study this important science. So we touch on things like IoT, like quantum computing and cryptography, um, deep learning, privacy preserving deep learning, in areas like you wouldn't believe. But we're about 100 strong right now. We're very diverse again. And yeah, it's a great institute and we have a lot to offer. So aside from who the literal people kind of are at CIC, what are some of the things that we do? What is our mission, so to speak? So in many ways, we often try to drive excellence in leadership in cybersecurity research, innovation, and education in Canada. We specifically focus on training, awareness, and professional development. We have a huge component of our work is research and development with our industry partners, as well as supporting different kind of entrepreneurial activities in cybersecurity. It's also worth noting that we're a multidisciplinary institute, so we don't all just sit down and hack and code and do stuff all day. We collaborate with different faculties in business and law, and those kinds of things as well, because cybersecurity isn't just strictly a technical domain. It has impacts, wide-reaching impacts for the rest of society as a whole also. So that's a little bit on our mission, but this still doesn't answer the question, what is cybersecurity? I remember before I started my master's of applied cybersecurity, I had that kind of conception as well. I was like, oh, it's just kind of like hacking and people doing bad things with computers and stuff. But what does this actually mean? And this is kind of my way I would describe it. And usually whenever we do outreach in schools, this is the first thing I start with. I don't actually start with what is cybersecurity. I often start with something very similar that people might be familiar with. So in many cases, in the New Brunswick school system, people are taught at a very young age about something called fire safety. And in fire safety, we recognize that there's this kind of triadic relationship between three things, namely oxygen, heat, and fuel. And we understand that when all of those things are in balance, we're able to produce this thing that we know is fire. There's probably some more technical definitions, but for our purposes, this is okay. So we also recognize that fire is very important. You know, it can cook our food or it can burn our house down, right? So managing all of these things is very important. But we can also look at this triadic relationship from kind of like an adversarial or defensive perspective, right? So, for example, if we are a firefighter, right, we view this triangle or this triadic relationship in a very important way because we are in this attacking kind of role, even though firefighters typically are out here trying to defend our homes from burning to the ground. And as a firefighter, we really like this triangle because we realize that if we can take only one of these things away, we can say that we've successfully extinguished the fire because it can't survive unless all of these things are in balance. Conversely, if there's some kind of adversary in this scenario, we would recognize that their job is actually a lot harder just in this abstract sense, because they have to keep all of these things in balance in order to keep this fire burning, in order to do something presumably bad. So in this case, our adversary might be an arsonist, and even though they are like this attacker, they are still in this kind of defensive role because they have to keep all of these things in balance. So I give this very long, drawn-out example about fire safety, mainly because people know what this is already, and they're very kind of familiar with it, even though they might not be familiar with it in the sense of this adversarial kind of scenario. But in cybersecurity, we have this exact same thing. And it's called the CIA triad. And it is very much the same thing. There's still this triadic relationship between these three things. It's not fire, heat, and oxygen. It's three other things that are known as confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And together, when these things are in balance, they help us protect data and services. And technically speaking, like we're among friends, like this is information security, but this can definitely be applied to an electronic or digital domain to bring it more in line with what cybersecurity classically is. Also, in this scenario, you might have realized if you're quite clever that the role is actually switched. Up top, we see this kind of attacker, and now they're in this attacking scenario. And in order for those individuals to impact cybersecurity, they have the easier job in this scenario of only having to take away one thing in order to say that they've had a non-trivial impact on cybersecurity, right? And conversely, the defenders are actually in this kind of defensive role. So you might think of people at the CIC in this way. And their job is to keep all of these things in balance, which is a much harder job and it's a much trickier job. So what are some of these things that make up our CIA triad? We talked a little bit about what they were for fire, heat, oxygen, and fuel. But here we actually have encryption used to provide confidentiality so that maybe people, even if they have your email, if it's encrypted, they can't read it. We also think about something called integrity, which is usually given with something called hashing. We're not going to get into what this technically is right now, but just know it just means that people can't change things like in flight. So if I send an email to Alice and there's some person or adversary in the middle and they change the email, Alice will be able to know that and detect that that email has been changed. The last thing is availability. So let's say that there's some kind of post office and Alice wants to go to the post office and get her mail. She needs to be able to do so like in a timely manner. So if she has to wait for 100 years, then we would say that the availability of getting the mail would be impacted. So again, all of those things form this triadic relationship. And I just wanted to kind of point these out and give people a similar analogy for fire safety in terms of being able to understand that. So now that we have a little bit of an idea about what cybersecurity is, let's talk a little bit about cybersecurity awareness. So two things that we're going to mention here are kind of differentiating between what you could do and what you should do. So in that way, something you could do is you could choose to accept the risk. And you might be saying, Griffin, this is a crazy proposition. This is the absolute worst thing you could ever tell anyone to do. Why would you say this? Well, unfortunately, you can't stop people from making bad decisions. And also, in some cases, we may not always care about these things. So, for example, if I went to the Regent Mall, right, and I got a brand new iPhone and it wasn't even out of its packaging, I probably wouldn't be too concerned if someone came along and took the iPhone and just ran off with it, right? I mean, obviously, I'd be a little upset because it'd be out an iPhone, but I wouldn't be upset in the sense that my personal information or things related to that nature would otherwise be compromised on that device. So maybe when I get this iPhone, the first thing I choose to do is accept the risk of not backing this up because maybe there's nothing to back up on that device. And maybe when I get home and I start to change the settings and do things, then I would back it up. And this might happen in a lot of different ways. We might do this knowingly or unknowingly, but just being mindful of if we want to choose to accept this risk or not is something at the forefront of cybersecurity awareness, in my opinion. There are entire domains set up for this, and we have people at CIC that literally just specialize in risk and risk tolerance. So yeah, that's one area. Another area is thinking about what you could do is you could gift others your trust. And this actually seems like a very strange thing to say. You could, a lot of people, when they think about trust, you have to say, oh, it's this thing that's earned, or it's this thing that, is given, or all this stuff. But actually, it's a gift. And essentially here, when we gift people our trust, we are the ones that assume responsibility for something goes wrong because we trust that other people that they probably will do what we want with them, but we're making that kind of calculation when we do so. And this was something that was actually presented on at Privacy, Security, and Trust a couple of years ago by Dr. Stephen Marsh. And it was a fantastic talk, and it definitely changed my mind on that. So if anyone would want to learn more about it, I've also included the YouTube video here. And something else you could do on the note of PST is you could also choose to attend PST, which is Privacy, Security, and Trust, which is happening on October 18th. And during this time, we have an industry summit, and you can come and listen to some of these lovely speakers and learn more about cybersecurity at the national and local level as well. And you can also come say hi to me. So I will be there. So, and also we have our email. So if you would like to learn more, you can email csc@umb.ca, and there are some wonderful people that can help answer all your questions in that regard. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about what we could do if we're thinking about cybersecurity, but what should we do, right? And I don't mean to put this up here as if some people might not know. I think if we had to guess some of these things, we could probably guess most of the ones on the top list, right? We could think about long, complex passwords. We could think about using password managers. We could think about taking automated backups or manual backups. We would say that it's good to keep your operating system updated. It's a good idea to have two-factor authentication on all of our accounts. It's a very good idea not to tell people your password. All jokes aside, sometimes that's not as easy as it might sound. And then there's some other more advanced ones down below that I'm not going to get into right now. But something I think that's missing a lot of the time is when people present these things, and I'm going to be guilty of it right now. They don't motivate or tell us why these things are important, right? Like, why actually should we have long passwords? Like, why can't I just use like my cat's name as my password and no one can just guess that, right? Why would we do this? Is often a question we want to answer, and perhaps in some future talks, some of my colleagues can also help motivate this. A little more. So after that, we might also say, oh, is it not going to change? Okay, yeah. I also included this very funny cat picture. This is actually from my mom of all people, which is amazing. And it's basically just this reasons why you might not want to use your pet's name as your password. And you can see here there's a cat that's shopping for frozen mites and crates of catnip and fun things like this. So if you just wanted some fun motivation to have long, complex passwords that aren't your pet's name, there you go. But now that we've talked a little bit about what cybersecurity is and just some cybersecurity awareness, the main focus of this talk today is going to be focusing on the outreach that CIC does in terms of cybersecurity outreach. So, what is cybersecurity outreach and how is this kind of different from awareness? So typically, at least when I think about awareness, I think about being able to make decisions like on your own based on some kind of knowledge, right? So if we have that, that's very good and we're aware of certain things that can be happening. But oftentimes we might face blockages or maybe we just don't have the time to always be aware of certain things. So oftentimes, as part of CIC's role, we will go do outreach and we will actually go to people more or less where they are. There's another kind of type of outreach that we do. I refer to it as inreach, where we bring people to us. But during that time, we will do similar things and go and talk to people again about what cybersecurity is, this kind of CIA triad, and how we can think about it. We'll also talk about some best practices and things like this. But that's kind of more or less what cybersecurity outreach is at a high level. But why do this outreach? Like, why is this important? Typically we don't associate outreach with generating millions of dollars. But conversely, it could save us millions of dollars in lost revenue, right? Like, imagine if every single person, like in Canada, actually just started using a password manager and they generated their passwords not through like their pets' names, but through actually very secure random methods that would help protect their critical accounts, right? I'm dead sure that would easily start saving us millions of dollars in lost revenue, and that's a very conservative figure. It might easily be billions, who knows? But another thing is that it can help people protect the things that are important to them, right? So if you have your bank account and you have like all of these measures in place, like your 2FA and your strong passwords and things like this, you will protect the things that are important to you and your assets so that you can continue to be able to be fulfilled, I guess, in society. I guess that's kind of a nice transition because another thing amongst many is just this notion of increasing individual agency in an increasingly digital world. And for those of you in the social sciences, you might kind of hear this and your ears might perk up and you might go, oh, agency, that's a very strange topic, where we're kind of trying to figure out how to increase people's ability to essentially choose more or less, but choose within a system in a way that will benefit or fulfill them in the long term. So that's kind of the sociologist in me leaking out a little bit, but that's how I see it. And I also see it not just as being something technological, but actually the ability to protect yourself and interact with our society as it continues to evolve digitally. Of course, there are many other good reasons, but these are just a few. So, what does this look like at CIC now that we've talked a little bit about it here now? Well, the first thing that we're going to talk about is Cyber Titan. And I'm going to have to give my apologies. At the very start of this, we checked this morning and the audio was working, but for right now, the audio isn't working in Cyber Titan. So I'm just going to describe it here for you now. Cyber Titan is something that's run actually by the US Air Force, and it's under the umbrella term of Cyber Patriot. And this is essentially a competition for individuals in middle school and high school to be able to practice cybersecurity skills, largely defensive skills for operating systems hardening, which is basically going in and trying to figure out how to protect certain areas within your operating system and various settings and making sure passwords are strong and there's good hygiene there as well. So that's something that happens, but it's not just for the United States and their Air Force. It's actually a global initiative at this point. So our version of Cyber Patriot is called Cyber Titan in Canada. And there are some very wonderful people at the Information Communication Technology Council, like Sheena Bolton and Timothy King, that do absolutely wonderful work promoting this for students in Canada. And this happens all over Canada in various kinds of schools. So I will leave the link. Please, if you have a moment, go watch this video. It's fantastic, and it will give you a good overview of what some of Cyber Titan's goals are and why it's important for Canada as well. So yeah, we'll skip through the video. So again, we actually do some of this mentorship as well. So typically this will happen within the school system, but oftentimes organizations and individuals can go volunteer with these various teams. It's a team competition. So that's one of the many things that CIC does. So towards this, we've been mentoring students from the Natural Access Middle School Cyber Titans for about the last 2 years. And we do that kind of work all the time where we go and we sit down with the students and we help them essentially harden their operating systems. And you might be wondering, okay, well, how is this competitive? Well, essentially what the students are given is basically a virtual copy of a computer during a competition. And they have to go find vulnerabilities in this virtual operating system. And if something goes wrong in this operating system and maybe they run something dangerous or something, it's actually not the end of the world because it's not actually happening on a real computer. So the students are totally safe at all times. And also, I keep reiterating this, but it is defensive in nature. At no point are students learning about kind of like exploitation or how to go hack people. And something that is impressed upon the students is the gravity of that work, right? If they ever did do something like that, that would be no different than if they went and broke into someone's house and they would be subject to all the rules of the law. And not like that we're always trying to go really hard on the students about that, but it is something to keep important in your mind that just because it's happening on a computer doesn't mean you may not be able to affect people's lives, right? And often some of the work we do in terms of mentoring involves promoting the students to think critically about what they're doing and dig a little bit deeper. So oftentimes this might look like they're just given some piece of code and you kind of probe the students and you say, hey, like, what do you think this code does? And if they don't know, that's when you say, okay, well, let's open the manual together and let's look at what this flag does and what that does and kind of actually dig deep into it. And so that the students will come away with an appreciation and understanding at not just a high level, but a very technical low level about some of the things they might be doing. And this also is a nice takeaway for why we should do outreach, because it only takes one individual that has this kind of background and is able to make sane and logical decisions about things that happen in an organization that may seriously just come from knowing what a flag on a certain program may or may not do. right? So that's super important. So I talked a little bit about the Cyber Titan mentorship. I did have another video about some of the students that we do mentorship with, but again, I will leave that for you to watch on your own time as well. They are absolutely fantastic students. A huge shout out to the National Access Middle School Cyber Titans, as well as Gary Gotro, that does amazing work. Thank you all. So outside of our mentorship with the Cyber Titan students, we also actually host them for their Cyber Titan National Finals, and we've been doing this for the last 2 years. So here we can see the students that we hosted this year, and they did very well. We're very proud of them. They received first and second place in the middle school division for the ICTC Cyber Titan National Finals. And the first place was, of course, the Cyber Dragons, and the second place was the Firewall Fighters. I always love seeing the competition names that the students come up with, or the team names, I should say. So that was for 2024. We also did this for 2023, and yet again, they also took first and second place. So we're very proud of them. And here it was the Cyber Dragons that were two-time first place for the middle school division, as well as the Yoda Biters. So congrats to all of them. Something else that we do aside from hosting them for the national finals and mentorship is we also bring them to the conference that I was mentioning earlier. What a great segue for PST. So this isn't just for seasoned cybersecurity professionals. This is also just for people trying to break in and learn some new things about cybersecurity as well. So this is all of them, and I know they were thrilled, and they got to come meet people from Microsoft and the RCMP and all these different organizations that come out to PST as well. And we're also going to be hosting them again this year. So we're super excited to see them. So that was the Cyber Titans. Moving in, I guess, now to the New Brunswick school system is we do a ton of outreach, just visiting schools. So in the past, we visited Farrington High School, we visited Leo Hayes High School, Ecole Saint Anne, Ormocto High School, and Bliss Carman Middle School. And this is a picture of me when I went to go visit Fredericton High School, and it was amazing because one of the teachers had like a little mini Enigma machine, and I just thought that was the craziest and coolest thing ever. I wish I was doing cool stuff like that when I was in high school. But yeah. And then also, I'm often not alone during these times. I'm often joined by my wonderful colleagues. So here we can see Dr. Windia, and she has like a little bio here. And usually we try to tell people a little bit about why we got into cybersecurity, and also like a little bit about ourselves as well. So thank you, Windia, for all the times that you came and helped with our outreach as well. So that's a little bit on the New Brunswick school system. During the presentations when we go, again, we give similar kind of things where we'll talk about best practices. Sometimes we'll even give demonstrations for motivating why we should use strong passwords, or what kind of things happen with encryption and networking, and kind of build into students' minds what this is a little bit more. So yeah, that's a little bit about our visits that we do with different schools in New Brunswick. We also give lots of different tours of CIC. So I kind of term this as being like in reach rather than outreach, but we've often held many different kinds of tours. So we've had JEDI in, or the Joint Economic Development Initiative, I believe, as well as the McKenna Institute, Rockdale High School, Ecole Saint Anne, as well as the UNB Cybersecurity Club, and many others. And of course, our main attraction is our MasterCard IoT laboratory. And some of my wonderful colleagues, Ali Reza Zoharian, who is also a PhD candidate at CIC and UNB, helps give all the demonstrations and tours of this area, as well as Ruth Murgatroyd, our institutional admin, often helps with these tours as well. So thank you all so much for the time that you give for that. And now I also wanted to include a little picture of our IoT lab, and you can see all the fun little cameras and things and whatnot. And we have Rhombas and drones, and every time I go down into our IoT lab, which is in our basement, there's new devices, and I'll always kind of go, oh, what's that new thing we have? And something I also tell people is don't say Alexa too loud, or you'll wake them, all of them. So just be careful about that. Outside of those kind of specific things where we do in-reach and outreach, we also do a lot of kind of miscellaneous activities. So a really fun one we did a while ago was giving a talk at the UNB Cybersecurity summer camp, or not a cybersecurity summer camp. It was through the Faculty of Computer Science, and we gave a cybersecurity talk at that summer camp. So that was really a great time. And I also want to thank my wonderful colleague Shabnam for coming out with me to do that. And the students learned a lot about networking and cryptography and things like that. So I just wanted to shout people out too for this opening talk. Outside of some of those things, some other more miscellaneous things that CIC does is we support our own clubs at UMB. So this is the UMB Cybersecurity Club. And I think last year we hosted them for a mini CTF. And if you don't know what a CTF is, it's a capture the flag event. And for this one, we kind of specialized and did some interesting things with deep learning. So the students got to take away some interesting knowledge from that. This is something I would absolutely 100% recommend any student at UMB that's interested even a little bit in cybersecurity, go attend. You don't have to be in computer science. You don't have to be in software engineering. You can just go and just see what it's about. And the nice thing about all the cybersecurity stuff is you'll learn not just how to be more secure in this space, but you'll also just learn general technical skills that might help you in your general life. If maybe you need to rename a million files that someone sent you, you'll have the tool set to do that, for example. So that's a little bit about some more inreach that we've done. Of course, I'm not alone in terms of the outreach that we do. We also have many others at CIC that go and volunteer their time to go give talks at things like the Fredericton International Airport, or if they want to go talk to different kind of engineers and geoscientists in New Brunswick as well, to update them on cybersecurity best practices related to different things, even like social engineering. And even outside of these activities, CSE researchers are often asked by different media outlets on just their opinion. So often I'll see my colleagues in the morning quietly kind of like chatting away on some call, and I'll be like, oh, what's that? And then later I'll see they were on like CBC or something like that. So it's always fun to see when that happens. I guess after that, I'm going to kind of close with our outreach now. I also wanted to highlight a couple of cybersecurity pathways for people at UMB. So this is a little more geared to if you're like a New Brunswick high school student or just a high school student in general. What are some things that you might think about if you wanted to pursue a career in this important science? So the first one would be the Bachelor of Computer Science, where you can actually specialize in cybersecurity. And this is amazing because not only will you graduate with a computer science degree, but you will also graduate with a specialization in cybersecurity. And then, if you so choose, you can also do the co-op program that's part of the bachelor degree, and you can potentially go intern with CIC or some other cybersecurity placements as well. So you can get out with like a huge, wide range of things related to a degree, a specialization, and experience all in the same domain. And typically people don't know about this like right at the start, but if you do, then it's something that you might want to consider. Yeah, outside of that, I would also harp on our Masters of Applied Cybersecurity program. This is something that's very impactful for a lot of students, and this is actually what I did. And in this program, it's a one-year program where you're going to take courses in everything related from cryptography to network security to database security to privacy to you name it, you'll be taking it. And at the very end, you'll also be doing a capstone project, and you'll do that in collaboration with industry. So this is kind of what my pathway looked like. I didn't do the specialization in cybersecurity at the undergraduate level. I actually didn't really touch much cybersecurity at all until I started this program. But afterwards, I was able to get employment here at CIC right after I graduated, and it was a wonderful experience. I would highly recommend for anyone that's interested. So with that, I would also just kind of recap a little bit of the talk that we've done so far. So we've given an introduction a little bit on myself, but also on CIC and what we do. We've kind of defined cybersecurity, so we can think about this kind of like CIA triad. And if we remember, we might also use the analogy of fire safety as well if we have a hard time remembering. We've also defined what cybersecurity awareness is and just some quick tips, as well as what cybersecurity outreach looks like in the many different ways that it can happen at CIC. And then lastly, we've closed off with just what are some easy things that people can do if they're just coming out of high school and they might want to look at doing cybersecurity at UMB. So with that, I would just close off and say thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the talk. And please, if you do have a minute, go watch those other two videos. I will drop a link in the chat for them so you can see some of the very hard work that our Cyber Titan students do at the National Access Middle School, and also have a little bit of an understanding about what Cyber Titan is, explained by ICTC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Griffin, for the wonderful introduction to all the outreach activities that we do here at CIC. I certainly remember being in the room with those Cyber Titans. It wasn't a nice feeling when most of those kids knew more about the cybersecurity world than me. But it was great to interact with those students.
Yes.
And I can certainly say, but you have set a really high bar for our speakers to come in future. So let me just quickly check if we have any questions from uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
some of our speakers. Okay. So Sarthak from actually yes, Sarthak has a question, and his question is I have a background in business administration,
Okay.
and what what career options I do have if I want to pursue a career in cybersecurity, and what's the right point to start?
Ooh, very interesting. I think you would be more apt to to answer this question than me. I think you're definitely a little more in the business domain. Um, I think finding your niche. I know that's kind of an overplayed term, but figuring out where business experience might be needed. I know a lot of things in cybersecurity are not strictly technical. Like if you know how to write policy very, very well, and you know maybe even like a lot of legal kind of terms and things like this, like that is especially non-trivial. We often think of like cybersecurity and people like hacking in the green text and all this stuff. And it's
Absolutely.
not as cool maybe as sitting down to write policy, but good policy is the thing that's
Mhm.
going to keep like your organization secure. So that might not like kind of fit in with business, but if you can think about how to leverage those kinds of skills, you'll definitely be
Mm,
very competitive even against people that might have a technical background that don't do it as
ah,
much.
absolutely. No, that's a fair point. Even if I can add a thought here, what I would
Yeah.
say, look forward to products within cybersecurity, and gain some speaking knowledge about those products. One of the example can be cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is picking up. So are you somebody as a business administration person who can go out there and sell cyber insurances? So just one of the opinions. So we have another question, Griffin,
Yeah, sure.
and this is, what are some of the common misconceptions you have encountered about cybersecurity outreach, and how can we address them in our communities?
Yeah, I think the main one that I tried to really push was that when we do work with our Cyber Titan students, that it is defensive, right? Like typically people might think that we're just trying to promote the students to go hack and do like not nice things or break into stuff. Like we do not do that at all. And that's just actually something one of my colleagues asked me the other day, and we had a very, very great discussion about it. So yeah, I think also just trying to be wide ranging. Sometimes it ranges even outside of cybersecurity where you're just trying to give people like good technical references. So, for example, if students are learning about Python, you might not want to let them just go to any reference in the whole world. Maybe you want to guide them towards like the standard library or like the source of very good, strong information, right? So
Mhm.
it's not just always only cybersecurity related things. Sometimes it's just like software development stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Uh, I think this is our last question from the webinar series, and I think you have covered briefly in one of your slide where you were talking about courses that we have at UND. So, but I'm going to repeat the question and let
Yeah.
you know. What advice would you give to young student or professional who are interested in pursuing a career in cybersecurity but not sure where to start?
Yeah. I think that undergraduate specialization is a wonderful option, and I also don't want to convey that like UMB is like the if you don't go here, you're not going to be able to do it. You know what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
are other avenues, right? And people that may not always have those kinds of resources and are self-taught still can go very far and know quite a lot. But I think one of the nice things about that undergraduate specialization in cybersecurity is it gives you a chance to try it out. Like
Yes.
maybe you get into it and you realize, oh, I don't really like the cybersecurity stuff, but I still like this computer science things. And maybe you might discover another avenue, maybe human computer interaction or any of those other wonderful things that we have at UMB aside from cybersecurity. Um, I guess to answer your question is, yeah, I would try that undergraduate specialization and also do work experience because, again, you'll get it with a degree, a specialization, and experience all as part of one program. Like that's amazing, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think when you're, doing your undergrad or your grad degree, work experience goes a long way. Especially in your interviews, you have a lot of, stories that you can tell. You have a lot of experience that you can share about the actual, work that you did in the industry.
And also, I would say part of cybersecurity is it, and this might be a little controversial, but for me at least, if you're doing a lot of very technical work, it's just a very deep understanding of computer science as it's applied in a social setting, right? So having that deep understanding that comes from the courses, maybe some of the non-related cybersecurity courses that you'll take during your undergrad is also very, very, very impactful and important as well. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. So I guess this was our last question from the webinar. I enjoyed listening to you a lot, Griffin.
Thank you so much.
Especially our viewers, because a lot of time I believe we do so much of good work in the community with respect
Yes.
young student at the K-12 level, at the high school level as well. So it was good to sort of put it out there. And thank you for sharing your insight, your wisdom, and your time. And I think with this, we'll sign off on today's webinar, and we'll see our viewers on the next webinar, which is happening on the 9th of October, same time. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Namin Griffin, for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.